Hello, 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 and welcome to Emotional Response Life Coaching with Ink Ivory. Hello, and how is everyone doing? I hope fine. I hope fine on this Saturday night before Sunday Mother's Day. How is everyone doing? This is my recording for the week. And I would have did it earlier, but the topic that I was diving in on, I was chewing on and dissecting, making sure that I deliver in a way that blesses others. I'm very conscious. I'm one of those deep thinkers, and people might think holding off information for another day might spoil someone for that day. That can happen, but at the same time, I'm also a firm believer on making sure your approach and your delivery is in such a way that the message is heard way more clear and understood way more clear because you're way more intentional about what you're talking about. Tonight, we're talking about toxicity levels. Toxicity levels. As we are locked down, there is so much more going on in the world. The domestic violence is at an all-time high. Gun violence is high. It's high within the Philadelphia area in general as it gets warm, but we have yet to have a warm streak, and yet gun violence is high. Violence itself is high. People are locked down and they're faced with their own emotions. And most of the time, at least in our current day and age, we haven't had the time, the majority of our personal lives, to face our emotions and actually embrace them, dissect them, and process them in a way that benefits one, us, and two, others. And I feel like the lockdown only brought us to a point to face. And because a lot of people don't know what to do with what they're facing, they're just becoming very, very, very reactive. And so the toxicity levels is at an all-time high. And we are becoming very destructive to our spouses, our significant others. We're becoming very destructive to our siblings, to our family. We're becoming very destructive to our kids. The toxicity levels is at an all-time high. And if you don't examine it, at times you don't know why you're doing what you're doing. You need to step back. And as I said before, if you've been a continual fan of me, I always say, check yourself. Check yourself. It's nothing wrong with taking 2 steps back and checking yourself. 2 seconds. 2 seconds can save you 20 hours. 2 seconds. 2 seconds can save you 20 days. 2 seconds. 2 seconds. I don't have time for that. I gotta. No, you don't always gotta. Take that I gotta, or I have to, or I need out of the equation, out of your vocabulary. Toxicity levels is basically assessing the exposure of how destructive your words and actions can hurt people if they was to come in contact with what you're dispersing. You might think that you're not obligated to anyone to be any type of way. But let's look at it from this perspective. You're obligated to be a human because you are a human. Toxicity levels can range so high in people's internal makeup that they become animalistic and very vile. When you think of toxicity levels, you think of someone spewing poison like a snake, or a monster just gouging out your eyes and doing something so horrific to you that it's beyond being human. And so this is very critical. And though you don't have to answer or owe it to anyone, owe it to yourself, because toxicity levels can raise so high that logic goes out the door and you forget what is important, what is critical in life. You have to examine when you get to the point of having toxicity levels that can put out an entire forest. Just think about it like that. Just think about a flicker of flame. You're angry. And that flicker of flame goes unresolved and unchecked and unassessed. However I'm wording it, I want to meet everybody with this analogy. And then that flicker of flame turns into a ball. And then that ball turns into a blaze. And the blaze turns into a storm of fire. And now you done taken out an entire forest. When that one flicker could have flicked. And before it went into the steps of becoming a blaze, you could have calmed it and take 2 seconds back and say, okay, this is why I feel this way. How should I respond? The R word is key. Because most of the time when our toxicity levels is high, we're responding in such a high and volatile way that we cannot even assess the damage that we'll do. And being quarantined, there's so many emotions that are spinning around inside. There's so many emotions that are spinning around inside. Cabin fever is a real emotion. And when you identify it as being real, something that is really going on inside of you, you're able to assess it. Oh, I need to get outside. I need to take a walk. I need to get some fresh air. I need to maybe drive for maybe 20 blocks and then come back. Because at the end of the day, me being bound inside is only creating my emotions to be bound up and then ready to explode on every little thing. Toxicity levels can raise so high just based on compound emotions. The root don't have to be anger. It could be tension. And then tension on top of tension, because you're locked in and confined into one residence, then on top of that becomes anger. And based on how big that tension is, just a flicker of anger can bring the toxicity levels to an all-time high. And you explode. And so I want to talk about being confined, but not confined emotionally. Being able to express yourself without becoming an expression that is dangerous. We are in a day and time now where so many variables come into place when you talk about toxicity levels. The first one that comes to mind is the way women are encouraged to face off with one, other women, and two, with other men. Not other men, and two, to face off with men. They're encouraged, they're inspired, they're pushed, it's almost like it's supposed to be a part of you. The disposition to be very combative. And so let's just look at life in general. If you're looking at a reality show, listening to certain music, hanging around certain people, and this goes across all races. This is not one general race because it's effective. They got a reality show for every single race. And every single race, they're telling them and spurring them on into being dramatic and being drama filled. And so that comes with a level of toxicity in order to be that. And it's so destructive that you might gain the praise or you might become a part of the trend. But you lose. It's like when a man first hit a woman. Most of their initial response is, I didn't mean to hit you, but I was just, it's like, you lost. You lost to yourself first before you lost to her. Because the image she had in her eyes was one of protectiveness, one of security, one of love. And then you erase all that down. And now she picks up the image of fear. I have talked to a couple of women that have been in abusive relationships where they're hit repeatedly and they're abused repeatedly. And I can say the reason why it becomes so earth-shattering is because the image that they had in their head of one, what a situation would have ended on, two, the image of that person, and three, how that person affected them emotionally. And you can't rewind time. That's why I'm stressing, check your toxicity levels. Anybody. I think it's a favorite phrase in Batman. A hero lives long enough to see himself become a villain. And I remembered that statement